communities across Scarborough through civic engagement activities that address inequities. And to that end, it's important that we know of ways to work well with communities and have insights into best practices. To help us do this, we have a presentation this evening about community-driven grassroots initiatives in Scarborough, focusing on the neighborhood of Woburn. And I just want to briefly introduce our two presenters. Nita Goswami is a parent of 2 daughters and has been a resident of Tuxedo Court for 8 years since her family's arrival in Canada. She is working at TDSB as a luncheon supervisor. She is school council chair of Woburn Junior Public School and founder of Woburn Junior Families. And Leah Yu Tung and her family are longtime residents of Woburn. She is the school council chair for Woburn Collegiate Institute, where her son attends as a student. She strongly believes that neighborhood safety begins with building community. So with that said, welcome Nita and welcome Leah, and I will let you take over from here, but you'll have to prompt me, okay?
Okay, thank you. Hello everyone, and thank you for allowing us this opportunity to, as I said to Nita, to brag about the work that she's done and the work that we've done together at Tuxedo Court. And it's something that we're proud of because of the fact that it has helped so many of our neighbors, and they've come back, and you can see the results so much more immediately. I think it's the reason why I've gone back to grassroots rather than doing the policy that I used to do in the nonprofit sector. It's to be able to see the impact you've done or you do so immediately, and it's very rewarding. So we will come back to these photos, but these are photos from a community event that I did in June of 2019 with the neighborhood grant from the City of Toronto. And the reason the pictures are there is because actually it's almost like a, where's Waldo? Nita is actually on the, the top left hand somewhere in that photo, and her daughter is in the below that too. We didn't know each other then when that event happened. But it's only as we look at this and she goes, that's me with that, backpack, or that's my daughter. So it's really interesting. So we're going to start, and I'm going to say, this is going to be more of a conversation, and I hope you don't mind. It's not going to be very formal. It's something that Nita and I will prompt each other as we go along, and feel free at any point in time, definitely, to ask questions, and Anna to guide us if there's any kind of questions that you think would be relevant to our story to tell everyone. But again, thanks for the opportunity. Let's go to the next slide.
Okay.
Second. So I just want to kind of make sure that to situate and let you know where Woburn is, and about so if you're, just to make sure that also that you understand how Woburn has been created in terms of as a neighborhood with the boundaries. So the map on the left-hand side, I don't know if everyone's familiar, is of course from the City of Toronto's neighborhood mapping. And these are the 140 neighborhoods that they have designated in their boundaries. And there is the link, and there's also links later on that you will get. But those are the 140 neighborhoods. And out of those 140 neighborhoods, the orange parts are the designated neighborhood improvement areas for the TSNS 2020 has designated. These are, I don't know if you're all familiar with 2005, 2013, the 13 priority neighborhoods. Is that kind of, okay. So the 13 priority neighborhoods that were from that time, basically after that that period of time until 2013, it then went on to TSNS 2020, and they designated 31 neighborhoods. Out of the 13 neighborhoods that were from the priority neighborhoods, I think around 6 of them were in Scarborough. Malvern and Dorset were amongst them, and as well as Lamoureux Steeles and KGO and Scarborough Village, Eglinton, East Kennedy Park. Those were the Scarborough ones. But with the TSNS 2020, some of them disappeared and are no longer considered priorities. They're no longer considered a neighborhood improvement area. And, but they're about, I think, KGO, Kingston Galloway Orton Park, which is West Hill, was remained as a neighborhood improvement area. Scarborough Village and Eglinton East Kennedy Park was Eglinton. It was Kennedy Park and Eglinton East and Iron View. You know, it's all in 3 different areas there, sectors. But if one thing I really noticed about this is that it's clustered. There's all the ones on the west, and there's all the ones here on the Scarborough East. 4 of those neighborhoods are what you call Scarborough East, and that is Woburn. And there is a number. Sorry, I'm going to look at it if you can see the numbers there. But the 4 furthest east is Woburn, and then right beside it is Morningside. And south of it is West Hill, and west of it is Scarborough Village. The 4 of those neighborhoods make up Scarborough East, and they are under the table of Scarborough East planning table. And so we have one City of Toronto a community development officer, Wayne Robinson, who oversees those 4 neighborhoods and supports those 4 neighborhoods under TSNS 2020. So the boundaries, as you can see in terms of where Woburn is, it's the Highway 401 is the furthest north, and the CNR Railway is the furthest south, past between Lawrence and Eglinton. McCowan, Bellamy, and on the west, and then on the east is basically the Highland Creek, Scarborough, and Orton Park. And so it really neighbors Kingston Galloway Orton Park. Is actually, we're always neighboring it. And I think the other thing that I want to point out is where Markham Road and Ellesmere intersects on the northeast corner is where, that blank space is where Tuxedo Court is, where Anita, where Anita lives. And right beside it, where all the little, beside that blank space is the housings. And that's where I live. So I live in the houses and she lives in the Tuxedo Court in the apartment buildings in that area. So just wanting to locate the spaces. Anything here in terms of, Nita, you want to add about our spaces?
Yeah, this is perfect. And we have 4 Tuxedo buildings. Those are rental, and one Tuxedo building is TCHC.
Yeah, actually 5. So there's 5 of them. 10, 20, 30, 40 are all market rent. Number 50 is a TCHC building that is senior building with mixed with adults who are transitioning from homelessness or that are adults who are also suffering from mental illness. So that is on 50 Tuxedo Court. And then right at Markham and Ellesmere are 2 more buildings that are TCHC, 2180 and 2190 Ellesmere. And there's a condo unit further just north of Tuxedo Court that is usually, I think 80 to 90% is rented by Centennial College students and the surrounding area. So it's always transient. The other thing that I want to point out is just on the Markham Road and Ellesmere, in that same corner, right across from Tuxedo Court, it's going to be a new build from Global Kingdom Ministries is building a whole 2 or 3 buildings of senior adult buildings that are going to come up in that area. And just south of Ellesmere and Markham on Painted Post, there's now a series about 5 or 6 other new buildings, condos that are going up. But a number of people that I know of who are living there are also saying that they're renting, not actually owning it. So there is now, the density is going to increase in the next few years. Okay. Can you go on to the next one? Okay. So one of the things that Anna had asked us to do, we thought we were going to talk about our initiatives, and she asked us to talk more about how we got involved and why we got involved. So I'm going to start, and then I'll pass it on to Nita. And I'm just going to let, I guess, everyone know that just a bit of background is the fact that my family came here in 1970. Well, my father came here in 73 as a political refugee from the Philippines. And we joined him later in 75. By that time, we hadn't seen him in 5 years. When he was first kidnapped and taken away from us, my mom was 8 months pregnant with my youngest sister, and she had 6 other children. So there's 7 of us siblings. And then we joined him 5 years later here in Canada. And as I said, he wasn't allowed to go back for political reasons. And the reason I got involved wasn't, I think for the longest time, I avoided politics for many reasons in terms of just having seen what it has actually done to our family. My mom always asked, how come none of you, out of the 7 children, nobody got into politics? And I said, well, there's a good reason why. But the other piece is that when I got involved here in Woburn, it was coming back home, and I got to know a friend who in 2018, September, she passed away of cancer. A very good neighbor, a very long-time resident as well of Woburn. And her husband was a teacher, a retired teacher at Woburn as well. But she was one who said, "I'm a housewife. I'm white. I'm privileged, and nobody really pays attention to me." But she would sit in her garden and garden away and say hi to everybody who passes by. And people did notice her. And when she passed away, people noticed her as well. One of the things that we often talked about was trying to do some sort of community building, because there was so much division, there was so much changes happening in our community. So we wanted to one day do some sort of community event. Unfortunately, she passed away before that. And so as tribute to her, I said, I'm going to do a community event that will bring a lot of these different factions in our community, in our part of Woburn together. So I got a City of Toronto grant money, and I was able to do a community event that you saw in the first page there, in the first slide, of at Woburn Collegiate, that brought people, that invited people from the different factions of. I opened it to the Catholic school. I told the Woburn Junior, that's where I connected with 23 local services and agencies, and was able to have 45 volunteers, and over 120 people came to that event. And it was meant to be a small one, enough to just get different people together that normally don't get together. And it was a free event, free books, free plants, free activities.
Whole afternoon, and it was a lot of fun.
So that was just my start into getting involved. And then it went from there to, just to let you know, is that in 2019, 2019, I guess I got, that's where I met Nita in that event unknowingly. And then I'm going to now pass it on to Nita to tell about her story, because we're going to start intersecting.
Okay, so I arrived in Canada in 2012, and I started volunteering at school after my youngest daughter was in school in 2017. And as I went for 1 or 2 activities, my daughter's teacher encouraged me to go more and more and involve in school activities and different classes. And in 1 or 2 years, that school became like my home, and the principal was introducing me like she is everywhere in every department of the school. And the reason I was there to help my daughter and to connect with parents and to share information to parents who couldn't come to the school, just like me. When my elder one was in school, I wasn't able to go for the pickup or drop off, and I wasn't aware of what's happening in the school. So that was the point where I connected with a lot of parents, and I started gathering their contact information, and we shared whatever we knew about the school. So, uh,
Okay. So do you,
yeah,
you want to talk about like 2018-19 in terms of how you got involved, like with the path?
yeah. That's for the next slide.
Yes, thanks.
We started a new project, and that was a woven pathway project. So in the beginning, a lot of people said that this is not going to happen, and so many people have tried this before, but we still were trying for the pathway. And our community worker, TDSB community worker, she helped us with the pathway project. She documented everything. She asked us uh, about the timings, and we had to collect all the data. She prepared.
Sorry, Nita, can you tell them like why you needed to have the pathway? What was the pathway?
Oh yeah, there is so much snow. People used to take the shortcut from the school's ground, just because the pathway is never clean when there was snow or a lot of ice. I saw a lot of senior people and parents and kids. They were falling down when they were walking in the ice, and we were trying to help those parents, and of course us too. So if the pathway is clear, then they will be more involved in the school activities and volunteering. And a lot of time they avoided to go to the school council meeting just because it was a lot of snow, and they had kid and they had stroller, and they weren't able to walk in the snow with the stroller.
And if you
And
can
they
look
had,
at the map, I'm sorry, I'm going to say, Nita, if you look at the map
yeah,
on the left-hand side, so you can see where it says Tuxedo Court Apartments, that's where majority of the parents were and families were living in. Where the red flag is Woburn Junior School. So the greenery is where they would cross during the non-winter months. They would do that crossover from the back of the buildings to the school. And that usually takes you how long, Nita? To walk that?
7 minutes, 7 minutes, yeah. But in
and
winter,
then,
it takes us more than 25 minutes, 30
across.
minutes sometimes, yeah.
And then, but if you walk, if what they were saying is that the only places that they was cleared was, of course, if they went from Tuxedo to Markham Road, and then Markham Road to Ellesmere.
To Ellesmere, yeah.
And
we had to
then
walk
to Dormington,
on, yeah.
right, on the sidewalk with their strollers, with their children. And that would have taken you how long? About,
We just tried it once, and it was like more than 40 minutes with the kids walking slowly, and the stroller and everything.
So there, the ask for that they were was asking for was to go from behind. There is actually a pathway that is where the red on the left-hand side and the blue that they're showing. There's actually, that's the first part is the City of Toronto Parks path. And then it curves onto Dormington, which is a sidewalk. And then towards the school. The unfortunate thing is that where the Dormington, from time that it curves, yeah, where Anna has the arrow, that one all the way to the school until the school grounds, there's that portion is a low priority for clearing the snow during the winter, because it stops just before that, and it stops just as you get to the school grounds. So half of that is school. The other half is actually belongs to the city parks. So there's always, that's the school says that's not ours, and the city park says we don't clear, right? So
Yeah.
that's and as a resident on the other side of the park, a lot of the, I know as a resident in that area, we often have snow drifts that come out so high that you don't see the sidewalk, and it actually goes right onto the road. They've stopped, when I called the city park, they were saying that they no longer do snow fences. And many of my seniors who are in the area said they remembered snow fences, but apparently funding has stopped for snow fences, and they don't do that anymore. So that's not something that they can do. So that was where Nita started with that 2018, 2019.
Yeah. And 2018-19, we went to see, we called our school trustee, and he came to us, he talked to us, he gave us some ideas how to move forward for this project, and that boosted our confidence. And after that, we thought this might be possible, and we started working on petition. So our community worker, she prepared the petition, and there were 6 of the parent volunteers were there. They were going with the petition to each and every door in our apartment, in our buildings, and we collected over 500 signatures on the petition, and then we filed the petition.
I'm going to
And
say to just ask Nita, just want to point out because it's going to come up later. Nita also said that at that time that they were petitioning, no one went to number 50 Tuxedo for,
yeah,
because why, Nita? He said.
yeah, just because a lot of people had spread the rumor that that building it's not safe, and if you go there, the people snap at you, they don't talk nice or kind, and we were scared to go there. Uh, and there was a reason there was no one who was ready. We planned like we'll go together, we'll go in group, and we'll talk to them, but we never did that.
Okay, thank you. So that was where I just want to show you geographically where our paths kind of cross. I pass through there and I bike through there all the time too. And there is also the divide where one of the reasons why I wanted to do my community event was because the people in the houses often say, oh, don't go across to the Tuxedo Court, right? And that especially the ones who've been here, the seniors who've been living here for about 30, 40, 50 years, they actually said they remembered when, right? It wasn't safe. And it's definitely changed in terms of the demographics of the area, but the divide remains that you don't mix in terms of housing with the people in the apartment. The same way as I worked at Woburn, I as a Woburn Collegiate, in a public school setting, oh, don't talk to the Catholic school board. Don't talk to there's always, don't talk to the other ones, or that's Catholic school, this is public school. They're two different things together. There's so many divisions in our area of people living in houses versus towers, people who are renters, people who are, even among the houses, they often say, are you an original? So if you're not one who actually was the first owner, who is called an original, even if the fact that we're the second owners and we maybe have been there for 37 years, we're still not original. So there is always, barriers to everything. And now, of course, there's new changes that people are coming in. Go ahead.
So I met Leah in June 2019, but it was not official meeting. But after that, we were working on the pathway, and our community worker, she called Leah to the meeting. And the day I saw her, I told her that I know you from somewhere, and you were in the neighborhood gathering, and that was the time we started getting connected, and we traded our contact information. And after that, we wanted to go to the city councilors meeting, and I had no ride, and I was worried about kids, and it was at night time. But Leah offered me ride, and she was with me, so that was making me comfortable to go somewhere. And that was the first day we went together to the meeting, and after that she offered me ride for so many other meetings and other opportunities, and she was always there whenever I needed something or I needed advice.
And the other thing was that I only got pulled into Woburn Junior is because of my event. I had actually reached out, and the principal of Woburn Junior was very welcoming and was very community minded. So I said to her, thank you for broadcasting about my event to your parents. And I said, is there anything that I can do as well to help out? And she mentioned several things, including the need for first aid. And I was then able to access funds for them and did first aid, a workshop for their parents through TSNS 2020 funds as well. So again, it was just continuing that relationship of her coming out, the local services and agencies that I reached out to and broadcasted my event became connections that I had made. And I continued to do that from the summer of 2019 onwards until, as Nita said, even our relationship with bringing her to the different events with the City of Toronto and Councillor Ainsley. So we're going to go to the next one, and I'm going to talk about when I was talking about my event about June 19th. I was doing it on my own, but I had to bring in 2 other neighbors. I had to have 3 people for that grant. So I kind of went around and asked people, can you put your name? I'll do all the work. I'll do all that, but I need your name on it. And I only need you on the day of the event to help me put it together. So in the picture there, in the top picture, you will see the person in the wheelchair. It's Rick McDonald. He's our treasurer for the local planning table. And there is actually below that, there are several other people in that picture that are also became members of our local planning table. And the Woburn local planning table was something that I formed in 2019 because the Southeast Scarborough planning table was given $5,000 for each table to use as barrier reducing funds for residents to meet. And what they decided was that for the 5,000, they divided it equally among the 4 neighborhoods of, as I said, West Hill, Morningside, Scarborough Village, and Woburn. And we each got $12.50. But in order to do that, we had to form a group, do a terms of reference, and there was, some accountability to that. So I said, there's $12.50, sure. I went around and I asked the people that were involved in my event to join. And I also announced to the Southeast Scarborough planning table, if there are any residents, please join. And I used any network I had to try to gather people. We ended up meeting for the first time in June 2019, and we got it going, and we have been meeting since. So we had 4 meetings in 2019, and I think quite a few meetings like this year because of COVID. But Nita has actually joined us as of April 2020 at Woburn Local Planning Table. So who we are is that we are 12 people. 9 of us are residents of Woburn, and there are 2 supporting non-residents that are one is a local champion, and the other individual is a member of Friends of Cedarbrook Park. That's located in Woburn, and the other individual is from a staff member of East Metro Youth Services, who became our host, and they're now called Strides Toronto, but they are located at Markham and Ellesmere, and they provided us office space to meet on our regular basis. So they became our supporting host and member as well. Out of the 9 people that are our members currently, as I said, Nita's one of them. We would invite people as we when there's opportunities, but our structure is that we decided we weren't going to be like a board, that we recognized that each individual in that group was a leader, and that they had projects and initiatives and interests that were not always common, but they had the drive to do something for Woburn, to give voice to Woburn, and they were connected with other parts of and other populations in Woburn that will represent and we can actually draw upon when we're trying to move forward. So our structure is that we vote and by consensus, and we try to do everything by consensus, and if not, then we do a vote for majority, so long as the majority of the votes are from the residents themselves. And as I said, our residents live at Markham and Lawrence. There's some that live at the Lee Center and Markham and Ellesmere. And our goals, I think the next slide. So these were our identified priorities that aligned with the Southeast Scarborough planning table priorities that they had identified, and also from input from the residents that we spoke to. So it's food security, employment training, mental health and youth, and neighborhood safety, advocacy and voice, as well as housing security. But as my little note says, it constantly changes depending upon what crisis comes up. But it started with food security and employment training, as well as mental health. But in January 2020, a 15-year-old Woburn Collegiate student was shot. And another 15-year-old was arrested for second-degree murder. It's not unfortunately, the boy that was shot and killed was an innocent victim. But it brought home, because especially personally, not only because I'm a Woburn Collegiate parent and the school council chair, but it was also because they were classmates of my son. So it really resonated in terms of that feeling of, oh my gosh, right? And the funny thing too, or the strange things that everyone around was saying, nothing really happens in Woburn. So among the 4 Southeast Scarborough of Morningside, Mornell, KGO, West Hill, and Scarborough Village, that's where all that thing happens. Nothing happens at Woburn, so there isn't as much of a need of the safety committees had actually gone kind of defunct and wasn't as active because there didn't seem to be a need for it. So when this thing happened, I had reached out to SCAN at that time as well, and Anna, and saying, what do we do here, and and she was asking what kind of supports. So it's really our priorities changed to focusing on mental health for youth, as well as neighborhood safety came with really looking at what were the issues or social issues in the area, and that we can actually make the most impact. And we focused on mental health for youth. So we go to the next one. I'm going to ask Nita to talk about Woburn.
Yeah, so the Woburn Junior families, it wasn't in existence till March 2020. After March 2020, the school closes, and due to the recreation centers closure, all kids were home and the parents were stressed. So we converted our pathway group into the Woburn Junior families. And then we started sharing all the information that was online information and everything. And I started asking parents what their concerns are, what their questions are. And that time they told me a lot of things, and they asked me about, they told me about that they were scared about their jobs, if they will have it or not. They were scared about paying rent because they didn't have any job, or some of them had no income at that point. And they were asking about the benefits and all the inquiries about that. And I reached out to parents after I reached out to Leah, and I asked her that what we can do about this, and she helped me. She connected with other agencies who donated books and kids supplies, and I reached out to Liquor Foundation, and at the same time they offered 300 activity books and reading books for the kids. So we distributed all the books in 100 kids in our group. And after that distribution, all the parents started connecting more and more, and they talked about the Woburn Junior Families group, and they added more and more parents, and we became a group of 130 parents and over 200 kids. And
can you go to the next slide, Anne? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So our priorities. So first thing we started distributing was the food supply. And the next was the kids' activities and books. And after the kids were settled and they had the food security, those distribution we were doing bi-weekly or weekly. And the same time, Repair Cafe offered us some masks, and I asked Leah if we can have all the supplies to make masks, and she said, "Yeah, I'll try." And the next day, we had all the supply for the mask, and we started making masks. We created a new group, all our parent volunteers. I taught them how to make masks, and we started making masks for community and for all the families and parents in Woburn Junior group. So,
and you can go to the next slide. So yeah, the photos that show each piece. So you want to talk about the photos that you see?
Yeah, the picture on the right top is Leah with her first activity distribution.
No, actually, our first one was that we don't have any pictures here of it, 5 and 2, right? That I use basically the contacts I have, and people actually, when everything closed and stopped, and by the way, TSNS 2020, it became suspended. So we actually had no funding, no supports, everything stopped from the city. So any grassroots or any kind of leadership we had at that time, it suddenly stopped. So the good thing is, because of my work with the neighborhood grant and my connections that I had made, I started reaching out directly to individuals and to people to find out. And I touched base with 5 and 2 Kitchen, who had actually supplied the food for my event in June, and said, "Is everything okay with you?" And she said, "Yes, but you know what? Starbucks have all closed down, and I've got all this milk to distribute, and all my food programs have closed. Is there anybody that you can kind of get, and do you have the, like basically no capacity to suddenly distribute all these things?" So I said, "Hold on a sec." I called Nita to say, can your family, can you use these bags of milk, if I can bring it within a certain period of time, and let's figure out how to do it. So actually, she said, "Let me do my WhatsApp." She went on her WhatsApp, and at that time she had about 30 families connected to that. And she, within minutes, she said, "Yes, they would like to have those milk." So I went and carted with bags of milk, crates of milk into my car, and dropped it off with Nita in front of her a 20 tuxedo. And she had said to the WhatsApp group to come down, and they all came down, picked it up, and left, and then brought it back out as well. And we had we did that several times over. We also figured, as part of the lessons learned, is that when the kitchen, they would get produce, and they said it in crates, and it was dropped off, if you don't look through it and you think, oh, would people actually take it, right? Because I got sick in terms of my allergies for a few weeks. So I had asked one of my local planning table members to help by picking up and dropping off, because they have no means of pick up and drop off. Both with the 5 and 2 Kitchen as well as Nita's group could not do that. So local planning table members, I got some, and as well as another neighbor, to go and pick up and drop off in front of the Tuxedo Court. And one of the things is that because the buildings are private and market rent, the management was not happy about some of the produce being left maybe in the lobbies and stuff that nobody wanted to pick up, because maybe the bananas had gone, right? And so
we cleaned up everything, but they said we are not allowed to have food in crowd people. That wasn't, we were trying to separate people from the elevator, and we volunteers were there to look after those things about safe distancing and everything, but still they had some concerns and policies that they weren't allowing us to stay there with the food.
Yeah. So we had to stop actually our food distribution for a while until we could figure something out. And the only thing that I then talked to 5 and 2 SEMA to say, we can only take things that can go into a little bag, and and that were not perishable. So she had granola bars or snack things that would come that way. And what I would do is, thankfully, Nita lived on the on the ground floor, and her balcony backed into the parking lot. So that was our pickup and drop off, where I would drop it off to her, and Nita would then take the, because I said we had to do it within a window of time because it was still cold enough that it was okay. We weren't, food safety wise, and these weren't too perishable. So Nita would then take it, and then what would you do with it, Nita? As soon as they're done?
I used to bag them as soon as I get those, and I make a list first from the WhatsApp group. So if parents says that they want food supplies, I make a list of the parents' apartment numbers, everything, and then I send a list to our volunteer group. And according to that list, I have to make bags for 20 tuxedo, 10 tuxedo, 30, and then after the bags were ready, Leah used to come to my balcony again, and she used to take all the bags, and she distribute all the bags to the different buildings.
Wow.
And all the volunteers collect those bags, and they go to each and every apartment, and they just hang the bag on their doorknob. And within 10 or 15 minutes, I started seeing those messages from the parents that thank you for the chocolate milk and thank you for this. And yeah, it was rewarding.
Yeah, and the same thing. So that van load of stuff was, when she was saying, as we were doing the food distribution, and the schools remained closed, Nita had said, was during before Easter weekend, was that she said the parents are going crazy. They don't know what to do with the kids, and they haven't left the house, and these are all young children under the age of 12, 14. So I said, okay, I put the word out, and Toronto Public Health and East Scarborough Storefront had come forward and said, how can we help? Because I was reaching out to, again, my contacts, and as well as I.C. Howard, East Scarborough Boys and Girls Club had actually given items to Scarborough Center for Healthy Communities, and they had these sunshine boxes of sunshine that they had started to make but couldn't then distribute. So we came at a time and said, we now had over 150 children in her list, and so we are looking for activities, just pencils, crayons. And she says, well, we've got these boxes, would you use it? But we only have 50 of them. Each box was supposed to be for one child. So I said, I will take them. And I had to borrow my neighbor's van to go get it, and took it picked it up and brought it to my garage, and let it stay there because it's all these COVID things. And also opened each one of those boxes and sorted them by ages to give back to Nita, and so that she then can put it back into different bags for the 150 children.
Wow.
So, and then went through the distribution. So that was what was happening. If you notice to the left of where the top one, the second one, Nita, who's that? So, like, can you tell?
That's Dina. That's my best support in parent volunteers. After a few distribution, I realized that it takes me a whole day to do everything, and then I started calling her. I started calling someone else, and then I tried with everyone, and I realized that Dina is really hardworking. And when I worked with her, it was really quick, and she understands my limitations and everything. So after that, every distribution, she helped me with the food delivery, distribution, and books distribution. So this picture it's about the second book and supplies distribution.
Okay. And then the third one picture in the middle with the Devani.
That's my friend Devani. She's making masks. She wanted to learn how to make masks, so I make a video. I send it to her, and with all the supplies we received from Leah, we started making masks. And after making masks for our community and our groups and our friends, she started making masks for her friends from different communities and her family, and they felt so confident. So yeah, the mask project was really appreciated by everyone.
And I just want to say too that in terms of that one, I reached out to Repair Cafe Toronto because I have a climate action grant money that I'm going to do with them it was supposed to be for this year. It's going to be postponed for next year. So we're doing a series of events. So when I reached out to Paul Magder of Repair Cafe, I said, we need some masks for the food, the ones that are in the bottom left there is one of our volunteers who I dropped the food to. And I said, I want them to start wearing masks. And so so they gave me masks that they were making, and their volunteers in their group were making for the hospitals and healthcare workers. But I said, can I have about 20 of them to start? And I think the families in the buildings may want some. But when I said that to Nita, she said, just get the 20 that we need for our volunteers, because we want to start making it for ourselves. And I think that was really, a great attitude that Nita had, was that she constantly said, okay, we'll take, but we also want to learn, and then we want to give back to the community. And how many masks did you make, Nita, in total?
3 of our volunteer made over 1,400 masks for temple services. And after that, we started making masks for a community, and there was those were around 800 to 900, and we are still making masks. We haven't stopped yet.
And so the one above, beside the mask making of Diwali, is 50 tuxedo court, and the one beside that is of Nita giving masks from TTC. I guess they had given that just a couple days ago to give out to the people in the buildings. And that's how we said that they were all afraid of going into 50 tuxedo court, and they, there was this fear, and there's kind of bias against the tenants of 50 tuxedo court. Well, during all of this time, TCHC, David Morales had actually reached out to me and said, we heard that you are doing, you have quite I guess a lot of initiatives that have been happening in Tuxedo Court. And he reached out to the local planning table, and he said, we need help to start up a food program for very vulnerable and very marginalized individuals who are needing food distribution at 50 Tuxedo. Right now, they had 2 staff, their members, doing all of that by themselves, and they couldn't sustain it, of course. So they asked if we had volunteers. So this was an opportunity. I said, would you open the program to everybody in that community other than just 50? Then it would mean that our volunteers can go and help there, but they can also be able to access that food. And it's always been that it was never, there was always a question every time people, I've heard this several times, and not just from Nita, but from others, when they go into a program like that in a TCHC building, they're told, you're not a resident of here, so why are you accessing this? This food. And so that was always something that stopped people from doing that. So if this was an opportunity, and TCHC was very, very welcoming. And so we, for the first 2 weeks of, I think, end of May and June, we actually, instead of distributing the way that Nita and I have been doing, we used 50 Tuxedo main lobby and got it. And I rallied Seema to give me more, and she was able to give me 2 carloads of food on one day that we were able to distribute to, and bag and distribute to everybody at anybody who came to that program. And it was, I think, advertised as well. But at the same time, he was actually looking to formalize it and brought in Daily Bread Food Bank, and Daily Bread had brought in South Asian group by Manjura's group, CSAGSS. And as of June 17, it became a formal emergency Daily Bread Food Bank pantry that is going to be going until August of 2020. And then we will reevaluate. But until then, it was, Nita, how many people now of your group have started there?
13 parent volunteers were there until last week. This week, 2 more volunteers joined.
And then and then we also had 50 Tuxedo Court volunteers, residents joining in terms of,
yeah. They have eight or 10 volunteers from their building too.
And they're working together on Wednesdays and Thursdays to do the distribution. In the beginning, I'm going to say that it was a bit of a tension because there was still, what are you doing in our program? How come we're being, you're coming in and excluded, and there was some things that we had to work out. But Nita said just last week, after 3 weeks, and we were constantly saying we said to our group, be sure when you go to that to the food program and you're volunteering there. At first it was like, let's see how efficient we can get. But I said, it's if the seniors were feeling that you're leaving them behind and you're kind of pushing them aside, they were resenting the fact that it was no longer their program. So Anita and I reiterated to our volunteers, I said, be sure when you're going there, say to them, thank you so much for sharing your space. Thank you so much for allowing us to be part of this program, because we do need it. Everybody needs it, and we're glad to help. So it was always this going back and forth of messaging. And it was so nice that Nita, you said you experienced something really wonderful.
Yeah. So last week, when I went there for intake on Thursday, someone was talking rudely to me, and the volunteer from the 50 Tuxedo, she came out and she told me that you're like my daughter, and I will not allow anyone to say anything to you. And it was so, it was so nice that I felt like, we are in our building, and it's not scary anymore.
Wow.
Okay. So to the next slide.
Okay.
Sorry, we're going to try to go through. So this is just pictures that we wanted to show of both on the left-hand side, the donors, like that's, everybody's wearing masks, right? 5 and 2 Kitchen, that's Seema, the founder. Below that is Dave Page of Children's Book Bank, and he delivered books for us just recently. The above, the one with myself and my son is inside the car in the van. He doesn't want to be seen, but he's in there. And to the right is a representative, Domi from SCHC. And below is one of our parent volunteers who's distributing. And then, of course, the 2 images of the children. I love the one above there where she says, thank you for, it says something about, thank you for giving us the books. We're no longer bored. It's something like that. It was really neat. And of course, we're not bored anymore, right? And that was just in time for Easter. And those 2 are actually Nita's children in below. So what I wanted to show was the faces. And every time I took the pictures to be able to, then we would distribute it back to the WhatsApp group and put it on our Facebook, in order to let people know these are people. They're not just names of organizations, but people behind those. And they're the ones that have helped us get these supplies to them. And the other way around is that we wanted, when we talked to our families, letting them know in terms of, it would be great because this is helping the agencies also be able to do their funding, get, again, accountability and everything else. But we wanted to show our appreciation both ways, so that we build not only always taking, but also build the connections and build the relationships between individuals.
Mm-hmm. And that's what happened after our first distribution of books. Legal Foundation, they applied for Indigo grant, and within few days their grant was approved. And Jessica, she's a program director, she was thanking me that just because you distributed all that, and we received this thank you cards, and they posted it on the Facebook. Every week they were posting the pictures of the kids, and that was the reason they got approval from the Indigo grant.
Yeah. And we've heard that several times over from people. Like recently we're doing once of training with AXA, a newcomer center. We saw that there was a cake decorating and training, and as well as food handling. And I said, we only have so many that are newcomers that are PR, but there's a number of them who are like citizens. Nita, and citizens already, and yet needing the training and needing this as an outlet. And they opened that for us. And we went to the park. Nita just called me and says, I'm going to the park. You know, I'm going to the park, right? The one between us. And she said, and I said, okay, let me print out all the registration forms. And we went there and we registered 27 people in 2 days, right? And sent it in to them so that she's now full. She was full for 3 of her workshops by the time we finished. And
all the parents went all together in the workshops, and yeah,
we were also looking for a way for them to connect and do some social kind of times. And a lot of the parents that when I started interviewing some of them and asking, you know, to just try to find out what they need and how where they were situated, some of them said prior to COVID they were running around often trying to, you know, jobs, drop off the kids, go off, come back, eat. They don't know anybody in their building, despite the fact that they've been living there 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And it was very hard to connect with other people. But she said with COVID, it actually, they had to sit down and they had to be with their children. They had to be there with them. And they said they actually found time to connect with others. And this group that Nita has allowed them those connections. And they want to also, when they were very eager to get to know each other and value those connections.
At the same time, I had a connection with Woburn School principal, and they were helping us a lot about information from the TDSB and devices distribution, and yeah, we were collaborating with them too, for kids. For kids, for activities and studies.
Next slide. Sorry. Anna.
Okay.
Sorry. So it's just, so I didn't want it, if you notice, I said donors in the last slide. It's actually about partnerships, connections, and collaborations. And we don't want to actually just keep it as donors. I think it's really important to develop that relationship into something fuller and something more sustainable. And in each case, in terms of this one, I put Woburn Local Planning Table in terms of support and mentoring. So I was in that role, but I also went back to my members and said, this is what we need. Can you please, you know, can we make a decision? Can we vote to continue to support Nita's group with the whatever funds we had left for our meetings, instead of using it because we're not meeting personally to have food and everything else? Can we use that for the mask making? Can we use that for the different little bits that are needed for that I couldn't get donations for? And so there's
like bags for the distribution.
Yeah, for the 1,000 bags for distribution. So we actually ended up I got support from them, and the same way that I was able to support Nita every time she had a question and she said, I need this, and I'd say, let me find out. And then I would go out to all these agencies as well, and I list them as including SCAN, because I would call Anna and say, Anna, you know, I need somebody to just sound off in terms of knowing what, you know, where I'm going and what I'm doing. And the same way that Nita did that with me, I would actually turn around, and needing that support kept me sane and kept me grounded in terms of how I move forward. The other ones in terms of, I guess in each one you can see in parentheses what each has given us. But as I said, it has become now more of a relationship with each of those organizations. And the next page. Okay, so this is the summary. Sorry, we're getting, the next 2 slides are our summary, and we just kind of putting it out there. I think we've said it all, but people really need their basic necessities met. If they don't have that, they can't think about being civically engaged. I remember the first 5 years of living here in Canada, we moved 5 times in 5 years. I went to 5 different schools from grade 6 all the way till, you know, high school. And so it's really important that we need to kind of figure out where people are at and what it is their immediate needs are in order for us to be able to respond to it. And I think COVID has really given Nita and I that opportunity to ask them, what's the next thing? And then keep moving and keep moving, because once one is stabilized, once school opened, that stabilized, and the anxieties of that suddenly dropped, and they said, okay, their kids are engaged, they're okay. So now what's the next thing? And then so we went to the next, and their health and well-being. We needed masks, we needed this. So it was constantly looking to check back and forth to make sure those needs, and the ones that individuals that were needing more supports than we could give, we connected to the community and to the community services. So that's the other piece that we made sure. The other thing is that, as you can see, despite COVID, it's these individuals that are marginalized, that are in these neighborhood improvement areas, have actually the capacity and passion to actually want to give back. They're not there just to take. And need to jump in anytime, but passion and good intentions are a great start to a movement, and we've seen that a couple of times.
Yeah.
And despite their good intentions, if the leadership does not make it where they have accountability, or they tell people, as we did in terms of the 50 tuxedo court, I think it would have kind of broken apart if we didn't go back to people to say, you know what, we need to have that consistent messaging, go back and say thank you, go back and connect with people, and those relationships would have fallen apart very easily, and can still do that if we're not we are not consistent.
And at 50 tuxedo, it happens so quickly, so we have to go there and explain there who are these people and what their roles are. And that's how they feel connected with the TCHC department. That's how they feel connected with CASAGs and 50 tuxedo volunteers.
Yeah, and by the way, the CSA, GGS, CASAGs, I guess, but they are actually, they're based out of Morningside, Mornell, so they're actually not from the community. And so that's what Nita's group brings, is that they bring the trust in terms of, especially, and I have to say, Nita being a resident there herself, when she goes into the program, because she's been working with them, and she's been able to respond to their needs all this time during COVID, they followed her into 50 Tuxedo Court. They wouldn't have done so otherwise, because they didn't have that relationship. And so, when we did that and brought them in, they were doing it out of trust, and they would still come back to Nita. And we have now a WhatsApp group for each of the initiatives that we do, to kind of build on the relationships of the people that are within each of those groups. The messaging is that we're trying to be always consistent and making sure that they have the right information and that no rumors start spreading.
Yeah.
I guess it's about that trust is always earned, and that we, even as leaders, we have to recognize when there's some capacity there, that we make them leaders themselves. There was this one of the volunteers at the 50 Tuxedo Court. She was saying, "Oh, my English isn't good. I'm not a good leader. I'm not a leader," kind of things. And yet she's the one that, when she was carrying things, she would do the really good squat to pick up all the crates. And so I would say to them, I said, look at her, follow exactly what she's doing, because that's going to save your back. That's going to keep you safe, right? And so just kind of being able to acknowledge the strengths of each individual. And as Nita had said, pointing out to individuals who then said, can you come and help me, and bringing them on board so that they feel, that they are part of it, and they're making, they can make those decisions as well and help make change. And that's how we build momentum. So the last slide.
Oh, sorry.
There. So just again, best practices. I think it's what we've said. Nita, you want to say each one, or?
I think you go ahead with it.
Okay. I think it's each one is very, like, as you said, authentic, representative, accountable leadership. So it's really important that what we said, we consistently said to our group, is that if you're volunteering, remember everyone's watching you. And these are your neighbors as well, right? So it's more the fact that don't think that people aren't watching, but it's also, this is your reputation. This is the reputation of everybody else behind that movement. So it's really important that you are honest about what you're doing. And even as simple as somebody taking, when they're doing the distribution, saying, oh, I want to put this in my bag, right?
Yeah.
And I think Nita and I said, don't think that nobody saw that, right?
Yeah.
so it's really important that you said, when you're volunteering to make sure things are well for everybody before yourself, and always be in that kind of mode that you are actually ensuring everyone's okay. And it says, don't worry, there's going to be enough. There's going to, and Nita tries to acknowledge that and recognize those volunteers. But when there's only a few of a certain kind of material that comes in, and it's not enough to give out, she will then bag it and give it to each of the volunteers as a thank you. So again, just recognizing to make sure there's that accountability as to where all of these things that we're getting goes to, and that it's transparent. And the one about communication being reliable, accessible, nobody reads emails, so that's why she went to WhatsApp, and that worked for their group. And anything that for the 50 tuxedo, because it didn't work for them, they're not on WhatsApp, the seniors, that's volunteers. So there's phone calls that are being made, or there's what, as Nita has actually identified, there's one who's the main lead. You tell her, she will tell everybody else. So recognizing that whatever is the communication that works for that community, you need to use what they have and what works for them, not what works for you. The part about respectful, I think, it's really, again, as I said, recognizing everybody's skills. It's also recognizing that out there are already agencies that are doing the same, we don't want to replicate, we don't want to take over anything that the agencies we're doing. Nita and I can get exhausted about doing things. We want to be able to say, go over there. As agencies open, we're sending people to say, get connected, do that, because it's really what is sustainable for that, for all around. It is being respectful of your capacity.
And one more thing, Leah, in the beginning, they weren't comfortable going to the links or going for the registration and calling someone for the registration of workshop or anything. But now, as we have made some registration by ourselves and help them with the books and everything, now they feel comfortable registering themselves and helping their neighbors or their friends with those things. And
empowering them to do the same.
Wonderful.
Yeah. And it's the same thing with the food handling that I'm doing right now, is that actually I would say, okay, they said, oh, I couldn't get in. So I said, okay, call me and I'm going to walk you through. Okay. And they'll have their phone and saying, okay, here's what's happening. And I'll be looking at their screen, and I'd walk them through clicking the different things. And we're going to do a study group with it, and invited anybody else that's not even within our group, but anybody that is in that in Access Stronger Women project, food handling. We opened our WhatsApp and said, if you want to join us they're from all over Scarborough, we don't know where, but we're saying you're welcome to join us because it's now accessible. And we can do study groups, or you can just contact us and we can actually just support each other. And it's nothing like, it's not a formal study group. It's really, I've always found that these informal sessions of study groups are a way for us to connect as individuals, and to be able to sometimes, once you get to know each other, to be able to say, hey, this is what I'm going through. Like this child is, my child's driving me crazy. And then you start talking about that. The other thing about this group is that when we were talking on an orientation today about it, some of the parents identified the fact that they did not have laptops to do the exam part, because it needs a laptop that has a camera and a mic. And so I quickly said, if you don't have one, if you only need it for the exam, I said, we'll look around for a laptop that we can borrow either from the library or access. And I just realized, actually, I have a Chromebook that I can also maybe make sure that we can actually kind of have it where we disinfect and whatever, but somebody can use it just to do their 1 hour exam as they need to. But there is that whole idea of supporting each other to figure out how we can move forward. 3 or 4 people from that group, from a different group, couldn't actually, wasn't actually completing the food handling. And it's because they said, they were having difficulty. So this is one way that we're hoping to ensure that everybody gets through it. And the other piece about flexibility is just, again, Nita, you added that one about being flexible.
So if we don't be flexible, then parent volunteers, they're gonna go away, because all the parents, they have families and kids, and they have some time limitation. Like if we call them in the morning, some of the parents, they are available in the morning. If we call it in the afternoon or evening, some of the parents have time that those particular times. So we ask in the WhatsApp group that who's available for this time, if we are doing distribution at 9 o'clock or 2 o'clock or 6 o'clock. So they send us messages that, okay, this person and this person's available for this building. And that's how we did all the distribution. We never forced everyone to do the distribution at the same time. But we were flexible, and we were asking them for their inputs, like when they will be comfortable to doing this. And that was the thing that was keeping them with the volunteering.
I think the other thing was about the fact that when something didn't go right, I think Nita would immediately let me know, and we talk about it as to what we would do to make sure there's accountability, whether it's because somebody signed up but didn't show up. And then we would say, well, if that happens, we explain it in a way that is hopefully respectful, by telling them why it's important for them to communicate ahead of time, so that somebody else can get a spot, and maybe the agency needs, wouldn't be then left with that dilemma. And it's also, I said, it also means that the trust is there for the agency to know that when we register you, and you registered in, that you've actually committed to it. And if you don't, we actually put in would make a little policy. The latest policy is that if you don't show up and you don't communicate, and there's no real emergency reason to do that, that had come up that was really unexpected, then you're going to go on a wait list for the next training session or whatever, that the registration. You're not going to be on the top of the line just because it's always a first come, first serve. But if there is need for prioritizing, we will then prioritize accordingly. So let's say for the food handling, I did say said there's limited spaces. Whoever wants, first come, first serve, but we will give priority to the ones who are already doing the food program and volunteering the food program. So that, and we try to be open about, if you don't show up, you're going to be on a wait list the next time, even if you're the first person who signed up, just because, you have to prove yourself again, kind of thing. And if you do, and if there is a space and you get in, and if they are consistent and able to commit to that, they can go back onto non-wait list, right? So again, making sure that it seems fair and equitable for everyone.
Okay. So a lot of good lessons learned there for SCAN, I think.
Sorry.
Yeah. And sorry, are you going to wrap up? I don't want to.
Yeah, that's it. No, then the next.
Okay.
No, Anna asked us to do a one-pager, but I said, can you just use these things as your summary? So the next slide is just, these are just about the response paper that we had written out. I don't know if, I think I sent that to you, Anna.
Okay.
Yeah, and then as well as the local planning table, we created a Facebook page, and that's